6:30. So tonight we will be talking about courage, and I'll just start this off by saying it's been hard for me to show up, but I'm so happy that I have been, and it's been a courageous act for me to continue to do these lives. Um, Never really did on camera stuff before, and I feel like I might be getting a little bit better at it. So it's fun to see this change and evolution, and by applying myself I'm able to get to that next level. So that's been pretty fun for me. But like I said, we're talking about courage, and first thing I want to talk about is this concept of a bison or a cow. I encourage you to act more like a bison, but most people act like a cow. And I'll jump into what that means here in just a second. But did you know that 1 in 3 people believe that you're actually courageous? Most people don't feel like they're courageous. Most people feel that they have to live in their fear and they don't want to take that next step forward. So, like I said, I want to talk about the bison and the cow. And did you know when there's a big storm coming, a cow will run away from it? So they could be in the same field, and a cow will see the storm coming and they'll get afraid and they'll start running away from the storm. So as this storm is approaching, this cow is going this way and they're trying to get away from the storm. Ultimately, what is that going to do? That storm's going to keep closing in on the cows, and they're going to be in that storm for a longer amount of time. A bison, on the other hand, sitting in that same field, this storm still coming this way, is going to look at that storm and run headfirst into that storm. And that means that that storm is going to pass them more quickly. So ultimately, you can either run away from the storm or you can run toward the storm. You can overcome your fears more quickly by addressing them, or you can run away from your fears and hope that you don't ever have to confront them, but they're kind of going to keep lingering over you. So you have to decide, are you a bison or are you a cow? Perfect analogy, right? You have to be courageous. You cannot overcome your can'ts. Like we talked about, you only get your musts. You don't get your wants. You don't get your I feel likes. You're not ever going to get your can'ts. So if you say, I can't work out, or I won't work out, I don't feel like eating healthy, I want to lose weight, you must convince yourself that you must do these things. When did you make the decision that you cannot do something? Did you hear me? When did you make that decision? Were you 10 years old and decide that you were a bad reader? Were you 18 years old and decided that you could never become a manager or a leader? Were you 45 years old and decided that you can't go back to the gym? Wherever you are in life, you have to understand that if you want something, you have to go for it. You have to be courageous and lean into your fears. You've changed so much since you decided that you can't do something. Courage does not mean that you can't be afraid. Courage means you are actively working toward overcoming your fears. So lean into your fears and go into the storm. Go after what you want. Be a bison. Don't let that storm or that fear hold you back. Because life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. You've been making up stories your whole life that you can't do something. You have trained your brain to say, I can't do blank. But can you train your brain to say that you can do something? You can. The answer is yes, you can. So I know I mentioned this the other day because it kind of came up organically, but I do want to talk about being courageous, and I'll tell you this story again about singing the teapot song. So when I was in gymnastics, anytime our coach heard us say that we cannot do something, we would have to go up on the high beam and we would have to sing and dance the I'm a Little Teapot song. And that was training us to not allow ourselves to say, I can't do something. And I still kind of hold myself to that level. I might not actually sing the song anymore, but I do try really hard to not say, I can't do something. I might tell myself I'm unable to do something right now in the moment. I need to learn more. I need to grow more. I need to change who I am right this moment so I can get to that next level. But that doesn't mean that I can't ever get there. If I apply myself and I apply my knowledge and my skills, the things that I'm learning, I will get to that next step. And you can too. You have to believe that you are strong. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to train your brain that you can do hard things, because you become what you consume. You become what you tell yourself. And what are you not doing because of your can'ts, because of your fears? What have you been telling yourself that you can't do? Are you not pursuing your passions? Are you not pursuing your purpose in this life? Are you not pursuing your goals and dreams because you've made up this story and probably influenced by other people's opinions at that you can't do something? You can achieve whatever you want to achieve if you apply yourself. So the word courage has a Latin root, C-O-R, cur, meaning heart. So courage comes from the heart. That's the foundation of what we've been talking about. When you want to build courage, you have to find your why. You have to find out your core values, who you are at your core, and then you have to pursue those passions. What's the worst thing that could happen? Ask yourself that question. What is the worst thing that could happen? You're already setting yourself up for failure when you do ask yourself that question. We all do it. Ask yourself this question instead. What is the best thing that can happen? Because you already know what the worst thing is. Your mind is trained. It's been trained for millions of years to think what's the worst that can happen. But focus on what's the best thing that can happen. Shift your mindset. Go into a learning and a growing mindset rather than a, oh, poor me mindset. Because you are stronger than you give yourself credit for. You have courage. It comes from the heart. You have to find it. So, kind of moving past that and jumping into this next section is you have to do what makes you happy, right? We all have one life. We all want to live our best life. How do we get there? You get there by implementing positive success habits. You get there by finding out who you are at your core. That simple sentence, do what makes you happy, isn't enough. That sounds confusing. That's overwhelming. There's no structure behind that. So if you use the tools that we've been talking about, you can overcome that objection of, well, how do I get there? Find your core purpose. Find your core values. Find your why. Visualize your future. See yourself where you want to be and take those steps to get to that next level. Look in your heart and have courage. I'm going to take this down. So, to me, courage has 4 steps. And I'll write them down. You can disregard this. I encourage you to write this down too if you can see it. I think I'll change the color. So courage takes, number 1, time. That's the one thing we all have in common. We all have the same amount of time in a day. Courage is going to take time to implement how you get to that next step. Number 2, dedication. You have to be dedicated. You have to decide what you want and you have to go for it. You have to continue to pursue it. Find out what that is by focusing on who you are at your core. Number 3. I almost wrote courage. Number 3 takes energy. We've been talking about this. It's going to take work. It's not going to necessarily be easy to get to the successes you want in life. But if you apply yourself and you continue to give yourself the energy to do the next thing every day and you show up, you can get to that next step. And number 4, focus. So we've talked a lot about how to hold yourself accountable and how to have self-discipline and how to keep yourself motivated. You have to continue to remain focused. If you want to pursue courage, if you want to get to that next level, focus on these 4 things: time, dedication, energy, and focus. So we all know that we become born and then we all die, right? So the time that you spend, and I'm just going to write it up here. So from your birthday to your death day, I know that's kind of morbid, but we'll use it. This is your journey. And what you do here is your decision. Nobody else makes the choices for you. If you want to cross the street today, if you want to sleep in late today, if you want to journal in your journal, those decisions are all made by you. If you don't want to do any of that, that's your decision too. You have to have the courage to show up for yourself. At the end of the day, on your death day, are you going to have regrets? If the answer is yes, this is where you can make those changes during your journey. You can't make that change here. Show up for yourself every single day and try to be a little bit better than you were yesterday by having courage. When you have courage, you're showing up with a learning mindset and a growing mindset. You have to be positive. You can not show up for yourself with a fixed mindset, because if you're believing that you can't do these things, you're not going to get to the next level. You have to believe in your why. For information on all of that kind of info, go back to last week. Learn more about your vision. Learn how to get there. Learn more about your core values and your core purpose. And find out what is your mission in this life. So let's talk a little bit about fear. Maybe you're afraid of snakes and spiders. Most people are. I know I kind of have that fear. In order to overcome those fears, you should face them, right? So a good example of this for me is when I went scuba diving. I have always been afraid of water. I don't like getting my face wet. I'm a bad swimmer. I'm like a fish out of water, but when I'm in water. So I'm kind of a mess when I'm underneath the water. And a couple of years ago, when I went to Hawaii, I went on a Discover Scuba experience. And what that means is in Hawaii, the bed is only about 30 feet below water. You can walk on the bed of the ocean floor, and they have beautiful wildlife, and it was really a great experience. And so I was really excited to go. But when I got there, and I was fine leading all the way up, we got to our location, I put on the scuba gear, put on the mask, watched the training from the instructor on the boat, and knew what I needed to do. Number one, had to flood my mask, and then so you open it up underwater, and then you flood it, and you push the water back out. And I had to show underwater that I could do a couple other activities. But when I got my face underwater and I had to do this, I had a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack before or after, and I couldn't figure out why. I had to be taken out of the water and sit on the edge of the boat, and I was hyperventilating. I had to take all the gear off. It was really a stressful moment for me. But in that moment, I was learning what the problem was. It was because I was afraid. But I had just seen 20 other people go, and I knew that this equipment had been used. I know people get certified. I know people love scuba diving. So why couldn't I do it? I don't know. I still don't know why I couldn't do it. But I decided to lean into my fear. I was growing from that fear. Because remember, fear is the acronym false evidence appearing real. I decided that I wanted to impress myself and show up for myself. Nobody else would have cared. I could have came home and my husband could have went scuba diving and it would have been fine. I leaned into my fear. I was courageous and I decided I'm going to figure out how I can get to that next step. How can I go scuba diving? I got underwater. I recomposed, got underwater. I did the tasks and I went scuba diving. Now, it wasn't the most eloquent scuba diving you've probably ever seen. I was kind of floating away and I was gripping the instructor's hand and then I was gripping my husband's hand when he let me go. And I was a hot mess, really. But the experience showed me I could do it. I told myself that I could do hard things. I leaned into my fear. I became courageous and I'm actually eager to try and go back. I've been trying to learn how to be better about getting my face wet and getting better at scuba diving. So, like in the shower, I'll get my face really wet now. I never used to do that. And when I am at a pool and my husband brings his scuba box with him, I'll put the scuba stuff on and I'll sit on the bottom of the floor of the pool and I try to lean into that fear. And it's not easy, but I know the more I overcome it, the more I lean into it and I try to face that fear, it will become easier. I have to, one, recognize when I'm afraid or anxious, and I am in this situation, right? Number two, I have to focus on learning and growing from it, which I have been. And number three, I have to change my mindset because what's the worst thing that can happen? I mean, I guess I could probably die. I could definitely get hurt underwater, right? My equipment could fail, but is that likely to happen? The odds are probably not going to happen, right? So I have to focus on what's the best thing that can happen. I could travel. I can go experience new places. I can enjoy this experience with my husband. I can grow and learn that I can do things that scare me and that are hard for me. And I can go explore the ocean. I mean, that's such an unexplored area, which that's super cool in and of itself, right? But I can't be afraid of getting my face wet. I can't be afraid of going scuba diving because if I'm always focused on what's the worst thing that can happen, how am I ever going to grow as an individual? I mean, I could get hurt. driving my car or walking my dog or riding my bike down the street. I mean, I could get hit by a car, right? If I live my life in fear, I'll never get to the point. I'll never live my life to the fullest. So I'm encouraging you to be courageous. And when I went, that's a great example. So let's flip the role here, right? Go from scuba diving to skydiving. So for my birthday one year, I got to go skydiving. And I wasn't necessarily as intimidated by skydiving because I didn't have to get my face wet, but I was nervous. Jumping thousands of feet out of the air from a plane, that's intimidating. That's scary. And I remember when the instructor brought me up, we were joking in the plane, and my heart was racing and I was just so eager to get out the plane. And then once it was my turn to go, I was nervous. And that's a normal reaction, but I was courageous. I didn't let my fear overcome what I was trying to do. I leaned into it and I am better for it. And I would love to go back and do that again, right? That's such an experience. I was learning to grow in that moment. So we talked a little bit about mindset, and thank you for that example. I love that. That was fun. We talked a little bit about mindset already, and in this instance, when we're talking about being courageous, you can say one of three things to yourself. I have no courage. That means you're leaning into your I'm afraid and I can't mindset, and you're letting that control who you are and what you want to do. You can lean into number two, the I don't have enough courage. That means you're trying. That means you're trying to overcome your objections and that you're willing to learn something, but it's not quite good enough because what you're consuming, what you're telling yourself, you need to be so positive. You need to push yourself, right? So number three, with your mindset, you should say, I am courageous, and you should be excited about it and you should celebrate that. I can overcome failure. I can do anything I set my mind to, because remember, failure is a learning opportunity. It's not somewhere to stop. It doesn't mean you're defeated. It means you can keep growing from that. You can learn from that experience. So over the past 9 days now, we've talked about vision and creating that future that you want. We've talked about deciding that you're going to take action and your core values and your core purpose and how that has to come from within with your why of what you want in your mission in this life. How to grow and how to learn and hold yourself accountable. We've talked about goals and dreams and having the motivation and the self-discipline to get to those accomplishments in your life. Now you have to have the courage. Now you have to have the heart to take you to that next step. You have to learn and you have to grow and you have to want to be just a little bit better by changing your habits, by implementing positive success habits. Show up for yourself and believe in yourself and try to do something every day that impresses even you. You go, wow, I did that. It's such a good feeling. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about change. So that's day 10, right? We're going to continue through this growth journey together. So we're going to jump into the homework. You've got 3 action items. They'll be posted in the Facebook group here in just a few minutes. Last Thursday, we talked about core values and core purpose, and you were encouraged to write down a few of those. Whatever came to mind, whatever you thought they were. I'm going to encourage you to take 5 minutes tonight and focus on what you wrote. Decide if those are still what you would claim as your core value and your core purpose now that you've had a week to kind of think about it. And if they're not, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be figured out in a week. But try to hone in on your top 3 to 5 core values and your core purpose and where you want to lead yourself in this life. Number 2 is fill out your success habit tracker, because again, what gets measured gets managed, right? And number 3, talk about this wheel of life right here. So this will be posted in the Facebook group here shortly. And I'm not going to really go over the components of it because I do want you to go check it out in the group. But you'll see in the group that you've got this wheel and it's got 10 little tick marks across here. I'm not sure if that's 10, but it doesn't matter. And each section, so we'll call this section A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Each section has its own component. And when you're filling this out, decide how you're living your life in section A and say, okay, I feel like right now I am succeeding to about halfway. Then decide how you're succeeding in section B. And maybe that section comes up here. And then maybe this one comes here and so forth, right? So at the end of the day, maybe your wheel of life looks something like that. Then color these in. Okay, color them in. And recognize that this area right here, this blank space that's not filled in, is your area for improvement. And take one area and try to improve on that area. So I think it's this quadrant right here. When I first did this exercise, it was celebration. And at first, I used to struggle with celebrating my wins. I used to I used to struggle to celebrate anything that was exciting. And if I accomplished a goal, it was always, well, what's the next one? How can I get there? How can I be a little bit better? How come I took so long to get that done? I never gave myself that grace to really accept that. So when my wheel of life used to look like, what it used to look like, is this section maybe was right here, right? I've been focusing on celebrating my wins and celebrating my goals and my dreams and getting to that next level. And now I can push this up. So if you take one area and you try to focus on that aspect of your life and you try and improve and implement positive success habits to take you to that next level, you can grow. And if you look at this, if this is the wheel of a car, you want all of these to be even, because right now there is no way that this wheel is going to roll smoothly down the road, right? I need this wheel to have every single area to here, because to live a fulfilled life, I need to fill my wheel. I need to be happy in every area or successful. And that can only be determined by you. Nobody can tell you what success is. Nobody can tell you how to make yourself happy. You have to choose that that's what you want. I firmly believe that that comes from your core. I think if you have strong foundation of who you are at your core, and your core values are solid, and your core purpose in this life are, if you know what those are, if you know what your why is and where you want to go, this wheel is going to get a lot happier. This wheel is going to be a lot more stable and it's going to roll a lot better. That's all I have tonight for courage. Remember to grow from the heart, grow who you are, love what you're passionate about, and don't give up. Don't break promises to yourself. Show up every single day and try to be just a little bit better than you were yesterday. I do have one ask, and this is a little bit courageous on my end. If you made it this far, and you know anybody that might benefit from this type of knowledge, if you could share it with them or message me and help me grow what I'm trying to do, that would be really beneficial to me, and I would be very grateful for it. I would really appreciate it. So thank you so much again for being here tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll talk about change.